Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. It's another happy Monday, gentlemen. Hey, I'm Tony Haggerty, at Haggerty10 on the Twitter handle, as you know, and I'm joined today by Sean Martin and Aidan Macdonald, at Sean Martin TCW and at Aidan C. Macdonald, their respective Twitter handles. Good morning, gentlemen. How are we all doing?
All good, Tony. Yourself?
Yes, champion. All good, indeed. Good. Aidan?
Yeah, I'm good, Tony. I'm good. Always a pleasure coming off another victory.
Or maybe I should say champions stroke hyphen, maybe what I call it, elect. Maybe I should choose my words a bit more carefully there, Sean. Indeed. Well, first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Hope you're all well. Throw your thoughts up in the comment section as we move along the briefing. But yeah, I'll ask you to take advantage of our new deal if you haven't already. We've got a new offer for you, as you can see running along the ticker tape, as my dog picks the right time to start barking. Subscribe to the Celtic Way website and support top quality football journalism covering the club you love, and it'll cost you £1 for 3 months of unlimited access to everything that's written on the website. If you are tuned into the website all weekend, there was some wonderful stuff on there. Sean did the stats yesterday, which did very well. You can throw that up later on, Sean. But all for a click of a button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And we also say thank you to SENECA. And as you all know, the Celtic Way Morning Briefing is now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA are the #1 hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video. Now, let's talk matters Celtic, gentlemen. Celtic beat the Cabbage and Ribs 3-1 on Saturday, Sean. The old leather belts defeated the Cabbage and Ribs. They got there in the end, Sean, but not before it was, a couple of spanners in the work, a couple of things to deal with. Hibs going ahead for the penalty with 10 men. And I read somewhere that Hibs played really, really well. Can't see that myself. Don't know where that narrative sprung from. I didn't think they had any intention of playing football, but they got their noses in front and were holding on for dear life. But Celtic come back into penalty from Jota, goal by O, and Haksabanovic doing what Haksabanovic does best, curls one into the top or bottom corner. He doesn't matter, does he? Just pick one of them when it goes there. But triumphed in the end, Sean. What was your thoughts first and foremost about the result? Just result in the end.
Hey, listen, the result was the ideal result. And what I mean by that isn't the scoreline necessarily or anything. Just the fact that it ended in a win means it's the ideal result, because we're down to single figures of league games left now.
Yes.
And the run-in, if you want to put it that way, might not really start until after the international break. But in my mind, it's already here. So, just a win is the ideal scoreline.
Aidan, do you go with that? We can be clinical and professional as we want, but just tick them off now. Wins, that's all we need. 6, I think, out of 9 will see them over the line, Aidan.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to that stage of the season, the sort of business end of the campaign, that the points are vital. Obviously, you want to play well at all times. Ange always talks about the importance of performance, but just getting the wins at this stage, Tony, and I'll be quite happy with that, to be honest.
Indeed. Performance-wise, Sean, you happy with that? Did you think that Celtic did enough? I mean, the manager was saying that they didn't think they were quite fluent, and there were stuff happening off the park as well. But he said, I think they maybe allowed themselves to get caught up in that in the first half, but maybe not so much the second.
I think Postecoglou had the right of it when he said it was a bit chaotic and it didn't really get into the rhythm at the start. I think losing Hatate and Aaron Moy not being available at all probably played into that. But I must say, from round about just before the Hibs sending off, I thought Celtic started getting a wee bit more creative, and then by the time the second half rolled round, they were steadily just making chance after chance after chance. And I said when I done the stats bomb roundup and I tweeted it out and stuff, they ended up with 36 shots and at least 6 quality chances. So I think that backs that up, that perception. It was definitely the second half was a far better half from Celtic's point of view, not just because they scored all 3 goals, but generally creatively in the way that they were playing. But yeah, I think Ange Postecoglou probably the right of it in terms of the opening period of the game.
Aidan, could you believe that you were reading or hearing or seeing on social media that Hibs played well? personally, I was a bit perplexed by it all. So I thought, if that's a team playing well, then I think their intention was to stop Celtic from playing. Whenever there was a kind of breaking play, they threw another ball in to stop Celtic from taking, that kind of stuff. I mean, and I get that, and fine. That's everybody wants to disrupt Celtic from playing. So, yep, you use every means necessary. But the bottom line is, you have to come and play. And they got a penalty. I think that was their only shot at goal, was it not?
No, they had 3 shots, but it was their only kind of quality chance.
Right.
Their only quality chance. They had 3 shots, but never had any after.
Yeah.
Well, was it technically? I'm trying to remember if it was technically still the first half, because they played that much stoppage time. I think it was on the 51st minute, but it might still have been actually the first half. But then I put it this way: for the bulk of that of the second half of that game, they never had a shot.
Aidan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing Joe Hart had to do really was take the ball at the back of the net after the penalty was converted.
Don't start Tony on the penalty.
Yeah, I know that's another point.
Unerring ability to dive the wrong way at penalties.
We might come to that. But yeah, he wasn't really tested throughout the match. In terms of people saying Hibs played well, obviously they did lead 1-0 for a decent enough period in the game, but they really didn't offer anything in terms of an attacking threat, and it did feel you were just kind of waiting for Celtic to score. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of at the stage now with this team that once you get that goal to sort of get back into the game, I'm expecting them to go on and get 1, if not 2. It's also happened a few times this season, and the weekend was another prime example of that. But yeah, I don't think you could really say Hibs played that well, to be honest, and I don't think that's a biased way to look at it.
Now, Marshall had some good saves. He did, Gary McDowell. He had a cracking
save. Actually, he should have saved that penalty, to be honest. He should have saved that, I think.
He should have saved the penalty, but I got chided for saying Aaron Moy penalty wasn't great the other week, but it still hit the back of the net, so I'm not going to say it again about Jota's. It went in, we'll take it, but yeah, Marshall should probably have saved it, but he didn't. But speaking of the goals, you sent a message to the group, Aidan, after that about on Saturday. You were delighted with that. Somebody put up a kind of videos of goal, Sutton's header against Juventus and O's goal. Now, I said in my man-by-man ratings that it was kind of Larsson-esque, because I've seen Larsson kind of shrug off people and dive to head balls home like that, but in terms of actual looking at those 2 goals, they were very, very similar. And the bottom line is, despite being fouled, and I would have been interested to see what would have happened if that not gone in, if they would have been brought back for a penalty, Sean. But he made it his. There was nobody else getting to that ball, and he knew all the kind of accuracy and direction was on the cross. Any contact, it's going in, because he bulleted it in, and I think it was the goal that he needed in terms of it being a really important one. Helped him settle. He has scored other goals for Celtic, but in terms of that was the excuse me, that was the match-winning goal for me. And
that was a winner. That was a winner. The Haksabanovic one, the gloss they call that in match reports. Oz was the winner. Oz was very literally the match winner.
And I think he needed that, and you could tell with his celebration, taps off and all that kind of stuff. Just
big Yakimakis-esque celebration.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, but it's just the way he powered his way. I mean, the defender was all over him, still fouling him, and he still managed to get the accuracy and direction as well on the header. And I know he wasn't far out, but you've seen them easily missed. And as I say, I would have been interested to see what happened had he not scored, but he did. And thankfully, Scott McGill's goal was excellent. I think that lad's a lot more to give. I think everybody thinks that too. He's a big unit, Sean, he's a handful.
He is, and he actually could and perhaps should have had a second as well late on. And he referenced that himself. He referenced a chance that he had before it and a chance that he had after it. Which I like that attitude, because he could easily have come off absolutely full of it, that he'd scored the winner, and instead he's going, well, actually I could have had another one, and I quite like that.
Yeah, I like players that kind of pick up on their own kind of, not so much faults, but the kind of ethos that they can get better, and he could have had more. I like that, Aidan, and I think the manager's always banging on about that, isn't he? Doesn't matter how many Celtic score, they could always do better, even when they scored 9 against Dundee United. I think he was talking about they could always do better and could be more clinical, that kind of stuff. And I guess you have goals to chase, don't you? You still want to chase that utopia of the perfect game of football or strive to be the best you can be. But Sean's right to say that about mentioning that. That's a good thing. You always like to hear that in your players.
Yeah, and that obviously demonstrates the mentality of the team and the squad that they're always wanting to improve, which if the team's wanting to achieve the goal of hopefully retaining the league and potentially maybe adding a Scottish Cup to a potential treble, it's the sort of mentality they need to have, always wanting to be better, always wanting to improve. And yeah, I thought that it was good to hear that from all, because you do make a good point, Tony. He could have been sort of lapping it up right after the game, after they got his goal, and obviously he did enjoy himself with his celebration, but I think it was good to hear that, and it does show you that he's wanting to get better and not just sort of resting on his laurels.
Kaiser's saying, screaming for a striker with aerial prowess, glad Biggle looks the part. Yeah, I mean, I've been quite pleased with his performances so far, but I just thought on Saturday, Shawnee, I think they all kind of knew the importance of winning that game and not giving any kind of, it brings us any kind of source for encouragement or any bit of daylight, so they firmly snatched it away from them again. And I think that was kind of prevalent in those celebrations because he knew how important a goal it was. And again, going back to the collective as well, and again, benchmen coming off or coming on and playing their part. 2 goals on Saturday coming from guys that came off the bench again.
2 assists as well, because although he played the equivalent of a full game, Turnbull was a sub as well. But to say what Kaiser's take what Kaiser's saying there about aerial prowess, I think if I'm right in saying, had 4 shots and all 4 of them were like really good positions, really good chances, and I think 3 were from corners and 1 was from a cross. They weren't all headers, but it was still that kind of traditional getting a ball in the box in some manner, and he was taking up good positions, central to goal. Obviously, with his actual goal, we've also spoke about it, throw up some comments there about his strength and his willingness to kind of his desire to get that ball. But the other chances as well, like as I said, he had a chance after it where he was disappointed himself that he didn't score. That wasn't a header, I think it was his left foot, but and he took 2, apart from that, and all 4 of his shots were from good positions and good chances, and they all came from crosses or corners. So it came on in a match that was probably the most obvious route for him to get involved, and he took full advantage of it, and all credit to him.
You mentioned the bull there, Sean.
Yes.
Now you said that my man-by-man ratings were maybe Rodney Marsh on the bull, but yeah, I gave him a 6, very harsh rating for the bull. Tony says Gary McDowell. Well, my thoughts were that you said to me that he had 2 assists because he floated over the corner from which O scored, and then he gave the ball to Haksabanovic at the edge of the box, from which Haksabanovic did what he does, curled 1 in. Now, fair enough, but my overall impression was that the bull didn't do enough to justify him being selected again. For me, and I'm speaking for myself, and if that was any kind of dress rehearsal or any kind of warning to Ange to say, I'm still here, I just thought he got a first team opportunity and didn't really take the game by the scruff of the neck the way he could. And also, I was also thinking as well, he's got a wonderful shot, as David Turnbull, but not once did he think of just picking the ball up and having a goal, because Celtic were struggling at one point to break Hibs down because they were playing with especially when he went to 10, it was just like 2 banks of 5, I just thought, why not just hit a dig from long range? You're well capable. He just didn't manoeuvre himself into those kind of positions and do what he kind of does best. So that was my basis for my rating for him. Other people, some agreed that they didn't think he did too well. Others said that he isn't going to cut it at Celtic. That's another argument altogether. But Gary says it was harsh rating, but I stand by it.
I mean, it's your ratings, it's your opinion. Don't think it was amazing. I don't think it was great. I think in terms of what you're saying, in terms of has he put himself into contention, saying right, you need to start with the next game? Don't think so. That said, within the context of that game, he's obviously divided opinion. He got the equivalent, as I said, of a full game because he only came on in the 13th minute. The amount of added time meant he actually played 92 minutes in total. And then scary thought, but McGregor and Cole played 102, 105, whatever it was. So, but he got 2 assists, Turnbull, 1 for the winner, and the other one was a neat layoff to Haksabanovic, but obviously Haksabanovic kind of made that with what he did after it. He was statistically also the team's most persistent presser and counter presser, so he did put in the shift off the ball. He had 2 or 3 long range shots, Tony, as well. He didn't not take a shot. For all of that, I would probably have given him a 7. So it's only one above. It's not exactly a massive disagreement. But I do see where a lot of people must be said, if Twitter's in to go by, and sometimes it's not. But I do see where a lot of people are coming from when they say he didn't particularly seize the day with any great aplomb. I'd still say 2 assists is 2 assists, but I do see where people are coming from and why they might have been a wee bit disappointed that he maybe never done more.
Eden?
Yeah, in terms of Turnbull, I do actually agree with what you were both saying there. Statistically, obviously, getting the 2 assists is good, but I don't think he had a massive impact outside of that on the match. And just to touch on your point about him taking a shot, Tony, the only thing I'd probably say about that is probably not an instruction that the manager's given him. So he is probably just trying to stick to the style of play as much as possible, even if he's not taking a pot. But at the same token, I mean, it wasn't really ever getting to desperation stages for Celtic. It's not like, they equalised with like 2 minutes to go or anything. But I can understand as the game was dragging on that people maybe did want him to maybe have an attempt because we know he's got that in his locker. But I thought he was fine, but it kind of goes back to Turnbull. He'd had obviously a wee run previously, and he'd picked up, I think it was a couple of goals, or maybe 3 goals even, sort of two or three matches in a row. But I'd never felt he was putting in, amazing performances that made you feel he had to start during that, even though he was putting up quite good numbers. And I think he started against St Mirren in the Scottish Cup at home, and I didn't think he did that well. And after that match, I'd felt that was maybe a opportunity missed for him because he was starting in a sort of important game and didn't really grab it by the scruff of the neck. But he's a bit of an interesting one. I know there is a debate online. I'm not saying I think this, but whether or not he can sort of play the way Ange does want him to. And I think Ange does like him. He was also an important player last season up until he got his injury in the League Cup final. But I don't know if I want to say the team's kind of moved on from him, because that's probably a wee bit harsh. But I think when everybody's fit in the midfield, I don't think David Turnbull would be sort of ahead of Aaron Moyer or Hatate or even O'Reilly for a lot of people, to be honest.
I mean, Sean, the manager rates him because he mentions him a lot, and I just feel that whenever he's given these kind of chances to shine, and I thought Saturday he didn't shine greatly. I'm not having a go because I think he's a very talented and gifted footballer. Maybe I just want to see a wee bit more from him. And yeah, I agree, he got 2 assists, but I think he's capable of a lot more.
I don't disagree. I'd give him a 7 for his contributions that were there, but I do, as I say, I see where people are coming from when they say they kind of would have expected a wee bit more, because but it is difficult. He's played, I want to say he's got 5 goals, 4 assists, I think, but it's like the minutes equivalent of like 13, 14 games. I mean, you consider he's mostly a sub. Actually, I think that's a decent contribution from the bench. Ultimately, I agree with Aidan. I don't think when you're picking a strongest Celtic team, it might sound harsh, but I don't think it comes into my thinking, really.
Beach Boys
I would say, sorry, just to say, I would just say that it's just, obviously, I think there is aspects he can bring to the team that maybe other players can't. I think from a dead ball and that, he is quite good, and you've seen sort of delivery in like that for a corner, but probably we don't see enough of that at Celtic in terms of converting from set pieces and corners with the crosses. So he can bring that, but yeah, I just think overall he's maybe just not in people's starting plans. But I think your point about him sort of not the stats he's put up, given that he's sort of limited minutes, that is probably something worth considering. And maybe if he was to get a sort of longer run, we would see more output. But it's just not something I can see happening, to be honest.
Tony, I've got to laugh. You've put up this comment from Beach Boys saying, pretty poor chat when we're talking about our own players playing badly after a win. And his very next comment is, let's talk about how much of a liability Starfield is.
Well, there you go. We're talking individual performances. So obviously, we're not having a pop at anybody. We're just talking about how, we saw certain individuals play. We do the player by player, man by man ratings. So it's a big thing for us. We do the extended ones and we give them ratings, and it's a hard skill, and people always disagree. So we're not doing players down. We are talking and discussing individual performances, because that's what we do every Monday. We talk about result, performance, and then we talk about individual performances. So anyway,
Speaking of individuals,
Carol Starfelt liability, 15 March, Modern Studies essay. Discuss.
I'll go positive before we start talking about the penalty incidents, I think. But I don't know I know who your standouts were, Tony, because I've seen your ratings. But Aidan, I don't know what you think, but for me, Jota was a standout. He was right on form, right on it. Fancied it, right up for it from the get-go. Don't get me wrong, I always make this point that he's got that other side to his game where even if he's not having a great game, he's still putting in the effort. But when he's in full flow, he's very, very hard to stop. That's 9 goals and 8 assists in the Premiership this season, 11 goals in all competitions. So he's just an assist, 11 goals and 9 assists in all competitions. So just an assist away from that double-double prediction, Tony.
Aidan, this is where you're meant to pull out an instrument and add to the Jota on the wing, a clarinet or something, or a xylophone or oboe or something, just to add to the kind of... It's growing arms and legs now, this Jota on the wing song, and the contribution is by thousands strong now. But yeah, Jota was my man. I'm sure he was your man as well, Aidan.
Yeah, well, I think firstly, Tony, is it not you that's meant to be coming up with the songs?
That's right. Well, it's supposed to be Greg Taylor. I'll sort it by the end of the season, don't I?
But yeah, Jota he was my man of the match as well. I thought he was really effective, taking the game by the scruff of the neck when, not that things were starting to get edgy, but it's like if you are 1-0 down, it's at home, it's at Parkhead, the fans can start to get a wee bit angsty at times, and he looked calm throughout, and yeah, he probably got a bit of luck with a penalty conversion. Marshall probably should have saved it, but he probably deserved his goal at that stage because he'd really put a lot of effort in. He was trying things, he wasn't being safe in terms of when he was going forward. He wasn't worried about giving the ball away, which is what we've come to expect with Jota. But yeah, he was definitely my man of the match, no doubt about that.
It's what you pay that extra bit for, isn't it? That bit of quality, somebody that can break defences and he's come right onto a game, Sean Jota, of late, and you can see it. He seems to be enjoying it. You saw his press conference on Friday. He was all smiles and he spoke away and he's talking about that he's in a good place, the team's in a good place. So yeah, I think that's reflective in his own performances on the field as well at this minute in time, and he seems to be a happy player.
Aye, Kaiser came in saying it's a no-brainer. He was fantastic. There's a couple of ones. Andrew Gillia saying, seen another side to Jota. He's got some fight in him. I would argue you've seen that since last season. I think he's always said he's quietly aggressive, if you want to put it that way, because he puts in. He's always put in his work off the ball. I don't think that's a new side at all. I think he's always been doing it.
He likes a persistent foul. To be honest, and
a nice winger's foul, Tony.
Yeah, but the thing about it is he flies under the radar because he's such a skillful player. So whenever he is, I wouldn't say putting the boot in, but whenever he's doing niggly fouls and silly stuff, he kind of gets away with it because it's not in his makeup, is it? Or the perception is that it's not in his makeup, which is good, because as long as that perception persists, then he'll be able to do what he did and wrestle the ball off the Hearts player and shunt it on, and Kyogo scores, which was great in midweek. He sort of did that. But I agree with you, he's never shy in putting in a shift in that sense, but I've always found him sometimes he puts in those kind of, wingers tackles and attackers challenges where they're not late and nasty per se, but they just sort of catch somebody and then talking up procedure, he ends up picking up a book and just for daft stuff,
Blind Asabat coming in saying Jota, I presume he's talking about, really gets going when Celtic are down. It's a good sign in my opinion. Totally agree with that. I know I mention this game all the time, but that Dundee United draw last year, only been in the door 5 minutes. It was him that was kind of trying to take the game by the scruff of the neck, hit it with 2-3 times, and it was him that other players were looking to that day. I think they do that quite a bit. They're not down often. Don't get me wrong. Certainly domestically, they're not down often. But I remember running about this time last year, and I might actually update it for this season. I looked at I called it clutch goal scorers. That's my NBA fandom coming through there. But it's like people that make a goal contribution when Celtic are drawing or winning, or the ones that kind of, not start pad, but the ones that tend to only do it when they're already winning, that kind of thing. And Jota was right up there in terms of making a tangible contribution when Celtic needed it, whether it's to break the deadlock or whether it's to get them back drawn when they're behind. So yeah, I totally agree with Blind Ass about that.
Now, let's talk about the penalty incidents.
Okay.
And Carol Starfelt for that matter. Clumsy in the extreme, Sean, I thought. I don't think you can deny that it was a penalty.
Starfelt first.
Yes.
I agree with you. I think that it was... I mean, he holds him, he impedes him, it's as clear as day. It was really, really silly, to be honest. I don't know what other word to use apart from silly. There was four or five other Celts round about him. And I get that he was trying to prevent a flick on, and if the ball was to beat Taylor, then I know that. But a wee bit of awareness, and he probably just doesn't do it, because I don't think he had to do it.
But Aidan, there's the smallest guy in the park won the header anyway.
Aye.
You know, and I just... and not for the first time, he's been clumsy in the box, Aidan. And giving referees that old cliche, a decision to make. But I just thought there wasn't even a decision to make in that one. It was just clear penalties you'll see all day for me. So.
Yeah, I thought it was a penalty. To be honest, when I was at the game, it was up the other end from me, so I didn't have kind of a clear view of it. But at half time, as soon as I was able to sort of see it back on my phone, there was no doubt for me that it was a penalty. In terms of Starfelt being clumsy, I think sometimes people do overstate it a wee bit, but obviously there was a relatively recent example in the sort of one at Ibrox when they fouled Sakawa, and I know we kind of debated that at the time, but I think we kind of came to the conclusion that probably was a penalty in the end. That is sort of two recent examples really in 2023 of him being a wee bit reckless in the box. I do think Starfelt's a very good defender overall, and I think he's got a lot of strengths, but maybe sometimes, I don't know if panic's the right word, but he just seems to be a wee bit rash in the box.
He's what Alan Morrison calls a front foot defender, in terms of if there's a decision to be made, whether to kind of have a wee look and see maybe step back a bit, or the alternative is go in and try and intercept it. He'll go and try and intercept it 99% of the time, whether that's the right decision or not. And a lot of the time it is, to be fair to him. He is a good player, certainly, in Scottish football. These penalty incidents aside, I think he's pretty solid. But that's what I would say to that, Aidan, is that's the way Alan would put it, as a front foot defender. That's his nature. He will always, or mostly always, choose to take that maybe riskier option and either dive in or go and intercept or whatever. But that's kind of why he's so good in the air as well. That's why he comes away with such good aerial stats, because he will go and win it. He'll go and make sure he does it, rather than kind of holding back and trying to sweep. Obviously, sometimes it doesn't work out, but I would say that was more applicable to the Sakala foul, where he'd probably, even if he was going to block a potential cross, he didn't need to go to ground like that in that situation. And Saturday, I don't think that's been a front foot defender. I think that was just being silly.
Yeah, I totally agree. And listen, we sat and watched him in the League Cup final and thought he played like Franz Beckenbauer, didn't we? So he has that in his locker, but there's these deficiencies in his game, which when they are shown up, they are costing Celtic, i.e. costing the penalty at Ibrox, cost them on Saturday for a spell, and Celtic went one down. So I just want them to try and iron those deficiencies out. And I know defenders always run the risk of giving away penalties, but when it's for clumsiness and stupidity, I've really got sympathy, because what's happening. I mean, the cameras are there, the VAR's there. It's not going to be, you're not going to get away with it now. And again, when you said there, sure, I still don't understand why he went to ground at Ibrox. I really don't. And I like him. I think he's an accomplished defender. I've said it before. I think an accomplished defender, certainly in this country. It's not a stick we're using to beat him with. You're talking about hard facts. There was no need for him to do that on Saturday. Greg Taylor won the header. As you say, a wee bit more of spatial awareness and surroundings and just watching what's happening rather than that anticipating and panicking and grabbing. I think it was Hanlon's shirt. Was it Hanlon, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think so.
So that's all. But hey, it didn't cost Celtic, but one of these games it might. And they end up, Celtic managed to come back and draw at Ibrox. Kyogo bailing them out of hole, the late goal, and Celtic coming back to beat Hibs. But you're not going to be bailed out by your teammates every time. So
there's a couple of comments just mentioning that people grapple all the time, and I get that, but also there is an element of stupidity there when he holds on for as long as he held on for, which brings me to the next incident. We'll come back to the red card, the Hibs red card, but the Celtic penalty. I think Hanlon was guilty of the same type of stupidity. Because, well, first of all, right, I don't think there was a handball in the build-up, because initially I did, and then I watched it back, and I think it hits his kind of shoulder, chest area, but the angle was awful, so I can't even tell with that. But the Hanlon foul on Carter Vickers, I do think it's similar to Starfield in terms of it's just so silly. He clearly thinks he's got him locked up. See, within that kind of ruck of bodies that was in the box, he obviously looks at him and thinks, hey, I've got him here. Carter Vickers escapes, and I think Hanlon panics and has both hands on him, holding him back. Now, whether you think that was enough to actually put Carter Vickers down or not is irrelevant, because it was definitely a pull, and it was a two-handed one. And that's why I think it was similar to Starfield. It was just so silly. And obviously Celtic got the benefit of that one, but it was just very silly penalty incidents.
It's happened right in front of the referee. He saw it. He watched it in real time, and he deemed it enough. He's grappling with him. Yeah, and it happens a lot. And, I can go back to 86 Skull Cup final where Big Roy got penalised for, I think it was grappling Terry Butcher, and these kind of things happen. But it was a penalty. You should say he's been silly and stupid. And how people can say as well, I mean, that Carter Vickers threw himself to the ground. Did he? He's a big guy. He's if he can get to the ball, he'll get to the ball. He was impeded from getting to the ball in the penalty area. He was fouled. He was grappled. It was a penalty. So, no debate there for me, Aidan.
No, I was just like with the Starfield one. I thought it was a penalty. It looked even more clear, to be honest, at the game, because he was clearly grappled with him and sort of took him down. But it was obviously, Hanlon must have just had a bit of a rush of blood to the head there. But yeah, I thought that was a clear penalty. And overall, with VAR included, they did end up probably getting those decisions right. I know we probably don't want to go into VAR too much, but yeah, I thought that was a clear penalty, Tony, to be honest.
Because Hanlon as well wasn't even looking at the ball.
No, to me, as I say, both hands on him, pulls him back. Yeah. The part about, like, Richard Taylor here, how strong is Hanlon to knock Carter Vickers down, it almost doesn't matter. What I would say to that is, though, say that incident happens and Carter Vickers, because he's so strong, doesn't actually go down, but kind of, stops. Do you think that penalty gets given? Because I don't, even though it's exactly the same foul. So whether you think or not that it was enough to actually put him down, the fact that he went down drew the attention to it maybe more, but it was going to be the same foul anyway, because both hands were on him, both hands were pulling him back. It's not the fact that he went to the ground, it's the fact that he was getting pulled back.
Yeah, it's a penalty. He's had both hands on him. He's not looking at the ball, and it's also happened right in front of the referee. So the referee had a right good view of it, and he was utterly convinced. We didn't need to go and check the screen, did he? He knew exactly what he saw, so he gave the penalty. I don't agree either about penalties being soft. There's no such rule as a soft penalty. It's either a penalty or it's not. Right, in my opinion, it's a soft penalty. A foul in the box, i.e. penalty. That's it. The referee gave it, and VAR probably did get the big decisions right on Saturday.
Now,
the sending off. We're coming to the sending off, and we spoke off here, and my thoughts on the sending off are, I actually think he could have got red carded for the first challenge, because it's quite a nasty one, quite sleek it coming down the player's shin, and he could have walked for that alone. The second booking, I think, possibly pretty harsh. I think. I know people saying he's endangering an opponent and all that kind of stuff, and he kicks him in the face or the head. But I think Carter Vickers comes from his blind side, doesn't he? And he doesn't actually see it. I think it's a genuine attempt to go for the ball, and Cameron Carter Vickers' head is down low because he's going for the ball as well. So I would maybe have given him the benefit of the doubt on that one, and then just said one more, you're off. But I can understand why. If he deems it a second yellow, because it's not. Let's clear this up. It's not a straight red. He wasn't given a straight red card. It's a second yellow. But the first one I thought was debatable. Yellow red for me. That kind of studs down the shin type thing. So second booking was harsh, says Kaiser. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was. I thought he was unlucky. Let's put it that way. I really do.
Max Start says it was actually probably a foul on Hyeon.
Well, there's a bit of grappling going on, isn't there? Before that,
well, that's what I was going to say. I don't think it does come from his blind side because the two of them were grappling each other before it. I've got to say, when I saw it full flight, I thought it was something and nothing. When I watched the game back, it was via Celtic TV, so I watched the half-time stuff as well. And Jerry McCulloch said, in his view, if it was the other way around, he'd be asking serious questions about it. And I think I'm pretty much in agreement in terms of it being a bit of grappling. Cameron Carter-Vickers lowers his head way down to get the ball, and Ewan swings a leg at it. Given where the ball was, and that playing it with your feet's probably more natural than trying to play it with your head at that height, I wouldn't say it was reckless or excessive force. So if it's careless, it would be no sanction is needed, just a foul, just play on after that. The officials obviously thought it qualified as reckless, so they booked him second booking and off. So that was a judgment call that they made. I don't personally think it qualified for that. Now in that first foul, by the same token, you go careless, reckless, excessive force. For it to be a red, it would have to have been excessive force. And I think probably reckless is what they well, no, definitely reckless is what they decided it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there was a decision to be made there, aye.
Yeah. Aidan, go along with that?
I think it was probably a wee bit harsh, but I can also kind of see why he has sent him off. Now, I'm not saying this is like justification for what they should be doing, but he's just been booked not long before for quite a dangerous challenge on Starfelt. Probably was fair enough, it was a yellow card, but it was definitely a bad challenge. And then also that instance happened kind of shortly after. Now, maybe that's factored into the referee's decision. I'm not saying that's fair. He probably should be taking kind of a decision on an individual basis, but I do wonder whether or not the fact that he's already been booked for kind of a bit of a dangerous challenge has then maybe played a part. Now, does I think he deliberately meant to sort of stick him in the head like that? I don't think so. It probably was momentum, but overall, it probably was a bit harsh, but I can maybe see why he sent him off. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know if that'll be one that could be what's the word I'm looking for?
Rescinded.
Overturned.
Well, it's 2 yellows, so
2 yellows is it not able to? But it's 2 yellows, is that the rule? Yeah, so it probably was a bit harsh. That was, for me, that was the most contentious decision. Like in the game, the penalties, I think we kind of agreed they were both penalties, but that was maybe the one that there was sort of more conversation to be had about it.
Pete McGee channeling the Jerry McCulloch line of thought there, saying that if we're honest, we'd have been screaming bloody murder at the screen if it was or bloody murder, I don't know what one he's using there, if it was one of ours red carded for that. And that's basically what Jerry McCulloch said, and I tend to agree with that. I think it was something and nothing at first glance, and even watching it back, I still don't even know if he did touch him in the face, but I don't know. I just felt as if it probably didn't come into reckless or excessive force, but the referees and officials obviously disagreed. Yeah.
Speaking of VAR, speaking of people talking about VAR, now another manager was asked his thoughts on VAR, the decision on Saturday, and the other manager being Kilmarnock manager Derek McInnes, about a Kilmarnock game, about an incident that happened in their game. And he decided in his infinite wisdom, the wisdom being Norman wisdom, to bring in Ange Postecoglou and mention the Celtic manager in his post-match comments. Now, given the fact that whenever anyone is asked Ange Postecoglou about another manager's comments, he always tells them he doesn't have time to listen to them, and their take on whatever is fair enough, but he never heard it. But I just found that a bit strange. You know, Friday's press conference, his first question was, I was speaking to David Martindale the other day, and you could see Ange's face like, and this is Celtic Hibs preview. You know, skip a bit, brother, and get to the point type thing, you know. I just find it all a bit perplexing, Sean, and also I was even more perplexed that Derek McInnes would choose to bring in Celtic manager Ange Postecoglou in a VAR discussion about an incident that happened in a Kilmarnock match concerning his team. I just don't see, I'm not connecting the dots there at all.
Well, there's a couple of comments here asking what did they actually say. So I'll just grab the quote there. Where he mentioned Ange Postecoglou he was talking about this in a couple of instances in the Kilmarnock game and just VAR in general across the season. And he said, first of all, he said Andy Considine mentioned to him that he actually did handball it and didn't know how to get away with it, all that kind of stuff. But then later in his kind of diatribe, he said it's frustrating. You hear Ange Postecoglou and whoever talking and almost scoffing at VAR as if they get nothing. Well, we, meaning Kilmarnock, if you look at it, have had zilch. Honestly, it's ridiculous. We don't seem to get any breaks at all. And it is a bit rich, given the amount of decisions that have gone against Celtic this season with VAR. But even despite that, I think it's a weird one. I think there's an argument there that, well, one or two things for me came to my mind. He's either thrown Ange Postecoglou's name in there to get the coach more publicity and therefore get his own point of view out there about VAR and maybe influence things later on against Kilmarnock. Or I can only imagine he's just really not listened to what Ange Postecoglou has said in terms of VAR this season, because he makes a point of not zoning in on individual decisions if he can help it. If he has a gripe, it's usually to do with the length of time a decision has taken to be made rather than the decision itself, and then the interrupting of the game that causes. He, of course, mentioned even getting these decisions right is paramount because it could end up influence a team's relegation fight, which is obviously nothing to do with Celtic. And I presume is exactly what Derek McInnes is worried about.
Well, I can only assume, possibly that's the influence from that. I've just got no clue as to why he has to bring the Celtic manager into at all, Aidan. Doesn't need to, but wants to, and has chosen to. And to me, it's kind of premeditated because we're probably going to do it at some point anyway.
Yeah, I think maybe go along with the train of thought that he's maybe thinking he'll be able to get more publicity out of the courts if he puts Andrew's name in. But like Sean mentioned, there has been plenty of decisions that have went against Celtic this year with VAR, so it probably wasn't the best example he chose in that case. For me personally, it does look like that it's a manager that's also under a bit of pressure in a sort of relegation battle at the moment. It does look like Dundee United might go down, but a team could come on, it could get dragged into that, and he's probably just under a bit of stress with that. He obviously drew at the weekend, didn't he? So he's probably a bit frustrated after the match, and he's kind of just hit out with that. But it didn't really make sense to me when I first seen it. So all I can think is he's just trying to get publicity for the courts because Celtic have had plenty of VAR decision against them across the season.
Have they?
Just as well you weren't there, Tony. You'd have went, Will Smith on Chris Rock at the Oscars. Take my manager's name out your mouth.
I just found that a strange one. That's so. As I say, because whenever another manager's name is mentioned to Ange Postecoglou, he just shakes his head, doesn't he? He's like, I'm too busy preparing my team. I'm too busy doing whatever. I don't have time to listen to what other guys say, and I just find that I found it bizarre, a bizarre episode more than anything else, to be perfectly honest. But hey, it is what it is, isn't it? But the good thing is, Celtic are still 9 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premiership table, heading into the international break, which we all dread, don't we? Oh, we're going to speak about. Oh dear. The well never dries up when you're talking about Celtic. You guys know that. Kaiser's shouting, "Get him, Tony!" See what you started here, Sean. There you go. Tony the Rock Johnson and all that. You know what I mean, but hey, as I say, I just found it all pretty bizarre. No need for Ange to be dragged into that kind of conversation, but that's just my own thoughts on it. But there you have it.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, that's almost a first half of football or a second half of football. 45 minutes debating, dissecting the post-mortem from Saturday. Celtic 3, Hibernian 1. As I say, Celtic still 9 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premiership. 9 to go, Sean. 6 wins will do it. 1 game at a time, et al. It's a long wait till the Ross County game, isn't it?
Oh well, 2 weeks. I don't even want to contemplate it.
Well, in the meantime, I'll just say to everybody, thanks for your comments today. We always appreciate it. Couldn't do it without you, but yeah, we like the toing and froing and the your opinions as well. We value that too. So thanks for that. And just direct you to the strapline running along the bottom. We've got a new offer. You subscribe to the Celtic Way website and support top quality football journalism covering the club you love. It'll cost you £1 for 3 months of unlimited access to everything that's written on the website. And it's all for a click of a button. We thank everybody that's done that. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And we also say thank you to SENECA. The Celtic Way Morning Briefing is now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA, the #1 hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video. We shall reconvene tomorrow, gentlemen. But thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. Sean, first class as always. Aidan, top man. Thank you. Take care.